Welcome, everyone, to a Portrait in Leadership hosted by the Women's History Initiative of the Historical Society of Palm Beach County. I am Vernique Williams, a member of the Society Board of Governors. I want to thank those who made this and other events possible in celebration of Women's History Month. This year, Tiffany Kenney will celebrate her 22nd year on air with WPBF 25 News. We are proud to say she is one of our very own, a recipient of 7 Emmy Awards, and the only local evening anchor born and raised in Palm Beach County. With all the important news she has covered, including a president in our own backyard, Tiffany says her favorite stories are of people who have faced adversity and won. She is perfect for this assignment, talking with 4 other women who have achieved much despite facing their own challenges.
Thank you, Vernique. And ladies, good morning. I am so honored to be among such distinguished women who are truly leaving their mark on Palm Beach County. The 4 women on our panel are all history makers. In each of their business roles, they have power and control over issues that affect our entire county and often well beyond. This is an opportunity to hear how they reached this point, what they think on matters outside their realms, and how they would advise those who follow in their footsteps. It is difficult to be brief about their achievements, but let's begin with a short bio of each panelist. As our county administrator, Verdenia Baker is often the voice and face of the government of Palm Beach County, one of the largest counties in Florida by any measure. She is responsible for implementing the policies of the Board of County Commissioners while overseeing nearly 7,000 employees and a $5.4 billion budget. Verdenia was instrumental in the development of the county's economic development program, workforce housing program, $50 million waterfront program, and incident commander of the COVID-19 pandemic. Verdenia holds a Master's of Science degree in Public Administration from Florida State University and a Certified Government Financial Manager designation. She began her career as a budget analyst in 1987, and when she was appointed county administrator in 2015, she was the first African American and the first woman to have done so. Evelyn Hopkins serves as corporate counsel for Florida Crystals Corporation, which has been growing and supplying local foods in Palm Beach County since 1960. She is a first-generation Cuban American and was raised in Miami. She started her career as a radiology technician and through continued education became the chief of the ultrasound department at Jackson Memorial Hospital. While working at Jackson Memorial, Evelyn obtained her business degree from Nova Southeastern University. She is also a graduate of Loyola University Chicago Law School. She is the immediate past chair of the Good Samaritan Medical Center Board of Trustees and of the Chamber of Commerce of the Palm Beaches, where she was the first Hispanic in that position. Evelyn is passionate about education and focuses her pro bono work on representing 2 Title I charter schools in Western Palm Beach County and mentoring and advocating for her mentees. Pamela Rauch is Vice President of External Affairs and Economic Development for Florida Power and Light Company, one of the nation's largest energy companies. She graduated from Florida State University College of Law and University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Her law career began with Gunster and Jones Foster, and then she joined the city of West Palm Beach in 1994. As assistant and then deputy city attorney, Pamela helped lead the downtown renaissance. She served on the Northern Palm Beach County Improvement District during the redevelopment resulting from the sale of John D. MacArthur's land. In 1999, she joined FPL as a senior attorney, overseeing real estate and environmental matters. Development of new power sources is also in her realm, as well as showcasing FPL's commitment to the communities that it serves. In Palm Beach County, the state, and the nation, Pamela handles government relations, community engagement, and economic development. Kelly Smallridge, a native of Palm Beach County, is president and CEO of its Business Development Board. A graduate of the University of Florida, she has served the BDB since 1988. In 2004, she became the first female president of an economic development board in South Florida. Today, Kelly is Florida's longest-serving economic development president of either gender. As her father was with Pratt & Whitney, a major local employer since 1958, she has probably always known the effect of big business on our economy. Pratt is on a list of big firms that Kelly has convinced to expand or relocate to Palm Beach County, which also includes Scripps, Florida, and the Max Planck Society. In just 5 years, the assistance of the BDB resulted in nearly $800 million in capital investment. In addition to filling important leadership positions, all these women have served the community on boards, which they often chair. In doing so, they influence many arenas, both related to their employment and not. They also find time to help the next generation find their way to making their own history. Let's find out how they arrived here. This first question, ladies, is for all of you. A study by the Peterson Institute for International Economics shows there is a positive relationship between female corporate leadership and positive performance by organizations. They did not conclude that women are better CEOs than men, but that fair and unbiased representation improves results. In your professional lives, have you found this to be true? Verdenia, let's start with you.
Yes, Tiffany, I have found it to be true. I think that women bring a different perspective to the table. We balance our lives between our families and knowing that we must continue to move forward in our business relationships. And so I do believe that women bring a different atmosphere to the workplace.
Kelly?
Good morning, Tiffany. I agree with Verdenia. Women have a unique set of leadership skills, and being fair and unbiased is one of them. And I think that some of our experience as female leaders of being fair and unbiased really kicks in when we start to have children, right? You have to be fair and unbiased with your own children. And when we are sitting in the boardroom and leading our staffs, that fair and unbiased approach is absolutely critical. And we come to the table with an open mind. We come to the table with a vision. And I think as females, one of the differences and strengths of women as leaders is the way in which we execute. There are a lot of leaders in this county and in this state and in this country that have great vision. But the ability to execute and multitask, I think, is a unique set of skills that we bring to our own organizations and our operations, which in the end drives increased bottom line results for the organization and for the board.
Pamela.
Good morning, Tiffany. I would definitely agree with my colleagues that, one thing that I've seen working for NextEra Energy FPL for 22 years is that diversity brings about better results, and that has been a very fundamental concept of our company and what we believe has led us to become a leader in the energy industry. So while gender diversity has definitely been a focus of ours at FPL, it is really diversity of all things, diversity of backgrounds, skill sets, gender, race, ethnicity. When you bring people together that have different skill sets and different backgrounds, you achieve better results. And we believe that that is a direct result of the success of our company.
And Evelyn, do you find the same in your professional life?
I do, and I also find that, as Pam was saying, whether it's gender diversity or race or religious diversity, you bring different thoughts into the table. At Florida Crystals, our legal department is about 50-50, and I really believe that when we're sitting around a conference room and we can share ideas, I think women bring the ability to just speak freely. And as Kelly was mentioning, we are master schedulers. We don't think of ourselves as professionals or moms or spouses or daughters. We are on and we are 100% of the time. So at least for me, when I show up to work, I don't think of myself as being at work from 9 to 5. This is what's next on my list. I am now a lawyer, and when I get home, I am now mom 100% of the time. So it's that ability to mix everything and keep everything at 100%, I think, is what makes us just a great attribute to any company.
Tiffany, I would like to add one element that I don't think that I'd like to highlight, and that is when potential employees or applicants see a woman at the helm, they then sometimes believe they fit into an organization, and they may apply when before they would not apply because they didn't think they had an opportunity with that particular company. I have had that experience with the county as becoming the county administrator. I've got more women applying. I've got people of color applying. Just the mere fact that they see someone that looks like them and they feel that they can aspire in that particular organization.
And that's why representation is just so very important, because, I mean, have you seen that change over the last 5 to 10 years, or is it even more just in the last 2 or 3 years?
I've seen it in the last 5 years. Of course, I've been the county administrator for 7, but yes, I have seen that change start to happen. Yes.
Well, to all of you, do you recall as a young girl being aware of limitations connected with being female? Did that ever enter your thought process that, oh wait, there are some limitations here? Pamela?
You know, I would answer that question both yes and no. And, you know, I grew up, I think a lot of that is governed by how you're raised. And I was fortunate to have parents who encouraged all 3 of their daughters, which I was the oldest, to that the sky was the limit. They worked very hard so that we could get a college education. And we grew up in South Florida in Broward County. I also grew up with a sports-minded family. We were all tennis players. And so most of my practice partners were boys. So I did not grow up feeling that there was any difference because I was always out practicing my sport with a lot of boys, so it felt very equal. On the same token, what I will say felt like a limitation back then was in South Florida, what types of jobs were available for anyone coming through and getting any kind of a degree. And my hat's off to Kelly Smallridge and Verdenia and Evelyn for all the work that they've done in their careers, because I think now when our children graduate, there are so many opportunities here. So the limitations I felt in South Florida in the 70s and 80s had more to do with, I think, Florida and where we were then compared to today, where there are so many opportunities for both men and women, but I've seen so many more opportunities in growth of women in professions here over the last 30 years that it's so heartwarming, and it makes me really happy to see how far we've come.
Yeah, the landscape does look a lot different, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Mm-hmm. Evelyn, what about you? Did you feel like there were limitations when you were a young girl?
I did, actually. And I don't know if I attribute it to it being the 70s or it being that I was the only child in a Cuban family. But there were absolutely limitations. For me, it was expected that I would go from my father's house to my husband's house. So the idea of going away to college or pursuing, an education that didn't allow me to be home for dinner was just out of the question. So when I looked at my immediate surrounding, a lot of the women in my family were either laborers or house, moms, stay-at-home moms, and there really weren't there wasn't a lot of education around me. So it wasn't until, and you're going to laugh, but it wasn't until I discovered Barbara Walters when I was around 8 years old that it was just kind of like the lights came on, and I was like, oh my goodness, like she is poised and intelligent, and she's talking to world leaders. And that was like, I felt that just, a light came on. And I remember being in my little room watching a little black and white TV set, and I would tune in every Friday because she was going to teach me something. So I definitely feel that I had the cultural female limitations of immigrant family, whether it was based on the culture or it was based on my parents' fear to let their daughter out in the world. It's probably a little bit of both. I'm very happy that they raised me that way, but I do believe that I felt the limitations of being a girl. My male counterparts, it was the sky's the limit for them.
Well, Barbara had that impact on a lot of young women, I would imagine. Kelly, what about you? I have to take a moment to say that I actually knew you when you were a young girl because we went to Coniston Junior High School together, and back then it seemed like you were a leader already, but I do wonder if you felt that there were any limitations back then.
Well, it's funny you say that, Tiffany, because there's actually 3 of us in this room that went to Coniston Middle School together. So what a small world. But you're absolutely right. I was aware of limitations, but not allowed to, I was not allowed to use my gender as an excuse. As the oldest of 3 kids growing up in the little village of Palm Springs right here in Palm Beach County, I was blessed to have parents who really pushed me to engage in every single activity. As you know, going to school with me, whether it was music, dance, or a club, and not just to engage in the activity, they pushed me to be a leader in the activity. I think the biggest difference in my life growing up as a young girl was the fact that my mother was a driving force in my life. Coming from the little island of Trinidad and Tobago and moving to the United States when she was 16 to pursue a college degree and then eventually become an owner of a private school right here in Palm Beach County, I grew up with always seeing my mother as that female figure that jumped off the diving board, as I still so often do today in my own career, to lead a school, to take risk, and to do things very big and bold. And she pushed me to do all of those things. Again, not just to participate, but to be the leader. And I think that really helped shape me. Like Pam said, our upbringing with our parents played a really big role in, did you have limitations or did you not have limitations? And I was always pushed to dive off that board on a regular basis.
Verdenia, I have to imagine as a Black woman, you may have had to deal with double the challenges, not only gender-based, but racially based as well. How did you overcome that?
Well, you overcome it every day. It doesn't go away. Actually, like Pam and Kelly, I'm the oldest of 6 kids. And so from day one, I was always responsible for my siblings and constantly working to make sure that I not only succeeded, but to ensure that my siblings did also. And my parents drove home the fact that education was key and that you must get a good education. You must learn, you must read, stay on top of things. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind. People can take a lot of things from you, but education, knowledge, they cannot take. And so that was one of my mother's mantras. So I always believed that, and I always moved forward. She would definitely push you off the diving board, let alone have you walk out there. But you were not allowed to say, I can't. You were not allowed to say, I'm afraid. So even if you were, you said your prayers and you moved through, ensuring that you had the proper knowledge. If you didn't know a certain topic, then you had to research it. She required us to read the newspaper, so we would have a discussion around our dinner table. So she was a firm believer in making sure that we did not allow stumbling blocks to prevent us from moving forward. And she'd take on anyone that attempted to.
It sounds like all of you have parents behind you really to celebrate what they did for you in terms of, pushing you and making sure that you had the safety and security of their belief and confidence in you. Can you recall specifically at one point in your professional life deciding that you were suited to a leadership role? Kelly, let's start with you.
Yes, as you mentioned in my bio, I have worked for the Business Development Board for 32 years. And I remember interviewing for this position. Had it not been for Sunfest, I probably would have never come into town while I was a young student at University of Florida to even interview for this position. But I can recall in 2004, after having worked for many men throughout my first 15 years, that when the president of the organization left, that I had so much blood, sweat, and tears in this organization that I really felt well suited to be the leader of the organization. I think part of making that decision really depends on what type of passion, energy, drive, and determination, because this is not for the weak at heart. It may look glamorous up here with the four of us, but I can tell you that there's just a lot of sweat equity that goes into having this title. It was not an easy climb up the ladder to be the first female of an economic development board. A lot of gender discrimination, which I'm sure we'll discuss a little later, but I think it was probably halfway into my career when I realized that I had the opportunity to become an expert in certain fields, and that if I could become an expert in economic development, I certainly could lead the pack in making this one of the best economic development boards in the state of Florida. So it took me 15 years, but if I had to do it all over again, I certainly would take the same path.
And there seem to be a lot of firsts among all of you that you represent. Verdenia, what about you? I mean, was there a moment when you decided, like, I can do that, I know I'm ready for this leadership role?
I think that first impression was, again, being the oldest of 6 kids and my parents working constantly. So therefore, I was responsible for ensuring that things got done around the house and to also lead my brothers and sisters along the way. So that was my first step in leadership. I was the first, once schools were integrated, in 7th grade, I was chosen as student president across the board. And so that was my first real push into politics at the school level. And then also from there on, just always the chair or president of various organizations throughout my upbringing. But I think here in Palm Beach County, I was actually given substantial opportunities. Mr. Weissman obviously saw something in me I didn't always see in myself. I was lucky with the right mentors and at the right time. And so being the first African-American impact fee coordinator here in Palm Beach County definitely pushed me to another level. It propelled me to deal with developers, attorneys, etc., which was very unusual back in the early 90s, very unusual. And so ever since then, my career it took off. I became the director of financial management, the first woman, first African-American, and then on to assistant county administrator, the deputy for a very long time, and then the county administrator. I was instrumental in creating the economic development program for Palm Beach County. I actually worked with Kelly hand in hand along with Larry Pelton, and then Kelly became, after Larry left, Kelly became the director of BDB, executive director, and we continued to work together. I worked with most of the ladies here on the frame with us, and I've met Evelyn before in other opportunities. And so I believe that just being given the opportunity and stepping into the limelight and meeting and exceeding expectations definitely helps propel women to another level.
And by the way, just a moment to say a big thank you for how you have led our county through COVID-19. Your leadership is on display every time you step in front of the cameras and help ease our fears and talk us through vaccination clinics and COVID testing. So thank you, because you have just done a remarkable job as the incident commander for Palm Beach County in COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Tiffany.
And Pamela, weigh in on this. I mean, do you recall a moment in your career when you said, yes, I'm ready for this leadership position?
You know, absolutely. I will go back and say, I think there's a lot to be said for birth order. A lot of us are the oldest in our families, and my sisters tease me for being a little bossy, and I think that explains a lot about Verdenia, the oldest of 6, I'll just say. Just teasing. You know, I do think there's something to be said for that. But as I traversed my career, and when I was at FPL, I had been a lawyer for over 9 years at FPL, almost 20 years in the law business. And a few years before, in 2004, there was an opportunity open at the company to have an officer role. And at the time, I spoke to the person that was retiring, and they talked to me about, oh, it would be too difficult difficult with a family. You'd need to be out every night. You'd have to reside somewhere other than Palm Beach County. And based on that conversation, I did not raise my hand for that job. And as soon as I passed it up and someone else got the role, it dawned on me that I should have raised my hand. I realized that I didn't need to do the job the way that my predecessor did, who was a man. The person who had always held that role since the beginning of FPL had always been a man. And I realized that I could bring my own skill sets to that job. So when that person moved on to a new job a few years later, I was approached and asked if I would take the job, and I couldn't say yes fast enough. I realized that I was ready for that leadership role. I was the first woman to become Vice President of External Affairs for the company, one of the few women officers of the company, and my boss was visionary enough to tell me, don't try to do that job like your predecessors. Bring your own skill sets to the job and bring you the value that you can bring. And so I would say that was the moment when I realized that I was ready for a leadership role, and that a lot of my colleagues were so genuinely happy for me that I got that job, because I think they saw there was a lot of opportunity, not just for women, but for a lot of employees at FPL to grow their careers and advance in the company. And I think that's been a commitment ever since. I know that I've been very committed to.
So Pamela, when you look back on that moment when you didn't raise your hand and you felt like, oh, I should have done that, what stopped you? Was it fear? Was it thinking you weren't ready?
It was the fear of not being able to manage raising children, being married, and also being successful at my career. So, when you ask the question about limitation, that might be where many women fear not being able to do all of them well at the same time. And, I think I grew up a little bit and matured my thinking and realized I don't need to do the job like my predecessors, do the job as I would do it. I'd like to think I've been able to be successful at it.
And Evelyn, what about you? You've been a leader in 2 careers. So were your choices related to being a woman?
Well, my first choice, I started as an X-ray tech. So I graduated high school, and like I mentioned, I was not allowed to go away to college. So I was just, at home. In the summer, I didn't have to worry about paying for anything, and I had a part-time job at the mall as a true 80s kid. And I remember clearly my mom walked into my room, and she said to me, "What's your plan?" And I was like, "What do you mean, what's my plan? I have everything set here." And she looked at me and she said, "You're going to go down to Miami-Dade Community College tomorrow, and you will not come back home until you've registered for college." So if any of you are familiar with Cuban women, you don't defy those orders. I marched myself down to Miami-Dade, and I just literally picked up the catalog, and I just enrolled in X-ray because it had a spot. It really had no more thought than that. And it was inexpensive, and I could live at home, and it was something that I could do, and they were hiring women, so why not? So I signed up, and while I was doing my clinicals at Baptist Hospital, I remember seeing that there were these other group of women that were looked up to, and they were the ultrasound techs. So I went up to the supervisor, Jeannie, and I asked her how I would become an ultrasound tech, and she told me. So I immediately signed up at Broward Community College and became an ultrasound tech. And from there, I just, thanks to my mom, who just didn't give me the option, she made me get educated. I fell in love with education because I realized that every time I learned something, it opened new doors. So when I was working at Mercy Hospital as an ultrasound tech, the chief of ultrasound position became open at Jackson Memorial. And in Miami, Jackson is the end-all and be-all. And so I applied. I didn't see it as a limitation. I just saw it as the next step, the next thing for me to do. And I was 22. And I beat out the other candidates, and I got the position, and I was there for 5 years. And in the interim, I never lost thought that I loved all. I wanted to be a lawyer. I was so passionate about the law. So I was fortunate that Jackson paid for my business degree, so I went to school at night. And then at 26, I finally left the nest and moved to Chicago. So my first career was, I think, out of just lockstep. And I just picked something, and I happened to follow upon something that I really love. I love the medical field, and I'm fortunate to be on the Good Sam board. But my second career is my love. I love practicing law. I love the work that I do. Every day I walk into work and I'm learning something, and that's what I love about being corporate counsel. I don't have a dull day. I get to learn new areas of the law and new places, and it just keeps me fueled because although I'm no longer school-aged, I'm still learning, and that's where I find my challenge and my happy place.
And you do your pro bono work. I mean, it's kind of full circle because you represent 2 Title I charter schools in Western Palm Beach County, and you mentor and advocate for those mentees. So, education, something that was so important. Well, really, with all 4 of you in your families, that was impressed upon you at a very young age. And Evelyn, that you kind of have come full circle and spend a lot of your free time, helping those 2 schools is really wonderful. And let's move on to Verdenia. I'm wondering if you are conscious, all of you, but let's start with Verdenia, if you're conscious of representing your gender in your professional role.
Yes, I am. I've always been, not only as a woman, but also as an African American, because I feel if I don't do an excellent job, I may hinder someone else from getting an opportunity. And again, that was instilled in me by my mother, that you always do the very best you can because you represent a lot of folks. And so I believe that it's extra pressure, always has been, but I'm older now, more seasoned, and so I always try to do what's right. I work diligently at that. I attempt to be as fair as I can possibly be, and so hopefully it impresses upon people behind me, because I stand on the shoulders of a lot of women that have gone on before me and women that I've looked up to and actually learned from outside of my mother and her sisters. So professionally, I've come a long way, and I've had a lot of women to help me along the way. And so it's incumbent upon me to reach back and help others as well.
Pamela, what about you?
Absolutely, Tiffany. I think, electricity is energy is a very male-dominated industry. And so when I was given the role that I'm in now in external affairs, you really play a role that serves as the face of the company. So I think a lot of people, employees were, look to me and my team as representing them out in the communities. And, in a male-dominated industry, I sit around the operating committee, and it's mostly men. But truthfully, I view them just like I viewed those boys I grew up playing tennis with. We're on the same team. We root for each other. We work well together. They root for me, and I root for them. And I also know that women coming up in a very male-dominated industry often come to me and ask me questions about how to raise a family, how to move forward in this kind of industry. So I've taken that role very seriously, and I know that there's not a one-size-fits-all answer to that. But I've really enjoyed being part of the team and helping to diversify what has been a very male-dominated industry, but we're committed to diversifying, and it's very exciting.
And Evelyn, are you conscious of representing your gender in your professional role?
Absolutely. And, as being a Cuban American female lawyer is a great honor for me. My parents left the island nation of Cuba and basically opened a door of opportunity for me. So everything I do, every leadership position I take, I am very conscious of representing both my gender and my culture. But, just like Pam said, I am not naive to the work that my predecessors have done. And I'm fortunate that my immediate supervisor is a great role model for me. You know, she's a vice president at the company, and she has taught me how to balance family and work. And so just to have her there as my sounding board, I've reached out to Pam several times. She's been my sounding board. It's the ability for us to say, you know what, this is a little hard sometimes. There is a lot on my plate. Like, I cannot possibly do one more thing. They've taught me that it's okay to say that. It's okay to say, like, I just can't take one more committee. I'm overcommitted, and I have to pull back. So it is a lot. It is a lot of pressure sometimes, but I love it, and I do it very proudly.
Kelly, same question to you, but in addition, I would love to know what's the best advice you've ever received about being a female CEO?
So I'm always conscious about representing my role. I'm, as mentioned, the only female that leads an economic development board in South Florida, and I serve on the front lines every day. Mostly dealing with men who are running large corporations throughout the United States, determining whether or not Palm Beach County is the best location for them. I spend a lot of time, I probably do 30 presentations every single year speaking to young women about opportunities and about leadership roles here in Palm Beach County, inspiring high school students and college students to graduate, get an education, and come back to Palm Beach County. But I also remember as a young girl when I graduated from the University of Florida that there were really only 3 opportunities to work in large corporations back in the late 1980s. You either work for Pratt Whitney, FPL, or Motorola. And so I approached this job with such passion to diversify Palm Beach County's economic base because I remember the situation that I was in when I came back to Palm Beach County to secure a job. Best advice I've ever received, two pieces of advice. One very early on is don't let anybody take your seat at the table. At 21 years old, I can remember walking into a boardroom with mostly men, and there were a few young girls my age, and I think I see it even today, and I tell high school girls, please don't do this. And that is when you walk into a boardroom, don't, because you're a female, sit on the perimeter of the room, sit at the board table. And I like I said, I continue to see young girls do that. We have a lot of energy, we have a lot of information, we are experts in our field, and there's no reason for us to sit on the perimeter of the room. The other bit of advice that I received, and I think this bodes well in my latter stage of my career, is that success is not about how much money you make, but how many lives that you change and how many people you lift up every day. And so I focus and start my morning really thinking about 3 people that I'm going to reach out and help during that day. And to me, that makes for a far more rewarding career than any career ladder approach that I would ever take, or any salary or promotion. And it means so much more than this little title of CEO. Because when I walk into a grocery store and someone comes up to me and says, hey, thank you so much for recruiting that company and winning that company for Palm Beach County, my son or daughter just got a job, or thank you so much, I live in Belle Glade and I now have the opportunity to work in a manufacturing operation, that's what warms my heart. Not this little title of CEO, not about what got me here. It's about lifting up the lives of the people that I love here in Palm Beach County and fighting every day for this county that I will never, ever leave.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I can only imagine the thousands of lives all of you have changed in the roles that you hold today. Speaking of coming back to Palm Beach County, being that 21-year-old woman sitting at the board table, how have you seen life change for women in Palm Beach County, Kelly?
So again, when I was growing up, 21 years old, coming here, very few females. Now, I actually see companies seeking females to lead their organizations. I also see so many boards coming to me asking for names of females to serve on their board, because let's just face it, females on the board, gender diversity leads to bottom line increased results. So many mayors in Palm Beach County are women. Palm Beach State College president, a female. Our county administrator, a female. Leaders of our universities, females. Leaders of private companies, females. Look at the women to my right. So, huge shift to where I used to say, I'm just the token female on the board. No, not anymore. Companies want that diversity. And I am so happy to see Palm Beach County shift from where it was 30 years ago to a county that's far more inclusive and aggressive in really seeking out multiple races, women, and just so many different diversity inclusion efforts. And I think that's one of the reasons why Palm Beach County just shines, and it's representative of the demographics that we're attracting to this area.
Verdenia, you touched on this earlier, saying that just based on the applicants alone, you're seeing much more diversity in who is applying to work in Palm Beach County. So talk a little bit about that some more and how you've seen life change for women here in the county.
One of the things I think that all businesses, and you've heard it here this morning, when you're looking to diversify your corporation or your government, you want to make sure that that pool that you're going to choose from is very diverse. It's inclusive. It tends to bring the cream of the pool to the top. And so you have an opportunity to hire the best person for the job. I am not an advocate of hiring anyone that's not qualified. Not at all, because it doesn't do that applicant any good, and it doesn't do your organization any good. But when that pool is very diverse, you have more competition. You have more competent individuals to choose from to lead whatever position you're recruiting. And so I do see that. I also make sure that when we are looking to recruit, we are looking at Hispanic organization, our mainstream organizations, our publications, where are we actually advertising? Are we advertising where women will see it? You know, so it brings in that diversity. And in addition, you know, for the last, I want to say 12 years, I've been a member of Women of Tomorrow and mentored, and I actually mentored at Palm Beach Lakes High School. This year I was not able to do so, but I'll go back. And so I have young ladies that come to me. I mentored many years ago. They've gone through, they're either in the health field or they're lawyers because they attended Lakes Law Academy. They're coming back and they're saying, Ms. Baker, you told me to go to college. I did. I got a degree, so I need a job now. And so we're trying to make sure they're getting those opportunities here in Palm Beach County, because our taxpayers invest in our kids K through 12, and then they hopefully go off to college or they stay here and go to college. We ought to be able to employ them. And so that's why it's so important for us to diversify our economy here in Palm Beach County, so we give an opportunity for our kids. As a new grandmother, I want my grandbaby to be able to grow up here, go off to college, come back, and definitely get a very well-paying job here in Palm Beach County.
And that's our hope for so many of our children, right? Is to
absolutely
do what we did, which was to, you know, grow up here and go to school here and then leave for a while and then come back. It's so wonderful when the kids do come back here and that they have the opportunities that you women are providing for them. Evelyn, what about you? I mean, how have you seen life change for women in Palm Beach County?
Well, to add to the list that Kelly started, our fire chief is a woman, the Literacy Coalition CEO is a woman. We've had two female CEOs at Good Sam, Dr. Schwinn at Palm Beach Atlantic. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and it just is amazing to be in meetings or to be in social functions back when we had them, and look around the room and see so many accomplished and intelligent women. And what I think that has created is, you know, more women are willing to take on those challenges. And I spend a lot of time mentoring young ladies. Not that I don't mentor young men, but somehow it's ended up with young ladies. And I love that they call me and they, you know, they want to know practical things. How do I apply for my LSAT, or how do I apply for scholarships? And, sometimes it's just giving them the confidence that they can do it. Other times it's giving them the practical knowledge of how to prepare for an interview and giving them that confidence that they can accomplish it. We're very fortunate that we have a ton of female judges that are always willing to help the next generation of female lawyers. We have a bunch of females in government, Verdenia and Dort Miller, who always are willing to give their time. So I think not only the promotion of female has helped the diversity of thinking in organizations, but it really has helped the next generation of Palm Beach County leaders and professionals.
And Pam, you came to Palm Beach County out of law school, so why did you choose to settle here, and how have you seen it change?
So this will probably age me, but it'll reflect a little history of Palm Beach County. After my first year of law school, two of my friends that I had made, who were from South Florida, I'm a Broward County raised girl, but back particularly in the 70s, which is still true today, you didn't traverse county lines very often. But we heard about a little music festival going on up here in Palm Beach County, and so we drove up here to see what was going on, and we actually parked over on Palm Beach because we didn't really know where to go. And as we walked across the bridge, there's this little festival called Sunfest. This would have been in 1986, so I think it had only been a festival for a couple of years. It was one stage, it was free. And there was just a few people with blankets that were listening to a group called Spyro Gyra. And as we walked across the bridge, I fell in love with the small skyline of downtown West Palm Beach. Keep in mind, this was before Rosemary Square. This was before the amphitheater. But I said to my two friends, I said, that is where I'm going to get a job. I just thought this was a town that had a lot of potential. It was small enough where I felt like I could build my name up from the ground floor and hopefully, be someone who could add value here and grow my life here. And I think it's more than exceeded my expectations. But that is really how I came to Palm Beach County, and I did get a job right on Flagler Drive right out of law school. Kind of worked my way up Flagler Drive all the way to Juno Beach. But the skyline today is better than ever.
It is a beautiful skyline, although I do miss the library. Remember when the library was down there on the waterfront?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
I love that library. And Sunfest, boy, that's changed from that little festival that you saw so many years ago. Palm Beach County, Pamela, often makes national news. There's always interesting, crazy stories. Do you want to share an anecdote of something in your work history that was very Palm Beach County?
Well, I can probably give a couple fun anecdotes. Part of my career was at the law firm of Jones and Foster, which was a great experience for me, and I had the pleasure of working under Skip Randolph, who still represents the town of Palm Beach today. So you can imagine being a young lawyer just out of law school and attending some of those meetings there at 24, 25 years old was definitely an experience. I remember right off the bat, I was the lawyer for the Landmark Commission, and it just so happened the chair at the time was all over the news for suspicion of having a hitman murder his wife, the Suki Sullivan, James Sullivan case. And he was chairing the board and refused to resign. And just out of law school, I thought, oh my goodness, what have I gotten into? Because I was advising him on the board. It turned out he ultimately fled, and they found him in Thailand many years later. So things like that were actually a good way to get exposed. I remember being invited to play tennis at Mar-a-Lago after it had been turned into a public club by the Trump organization. Invited a friend of mine who's now a federal judge, also a tennis player from Princeton, Robin Rosenberg. And as we were hitting on the court there, Donald pulled up with his then wife and asked asked us to play with him because they were getting ready for a tournament. So we went out and played some doubles, and I'll just share with the group that we did win. We did win that match. But it was very fun. He was doing The Apprentice back then, and so he was sort of a TV celebrity at the time. So those were just some of the fun things that exposed me to kind of a bigger life in Palm Beach County and added a little color to my legal career.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised that you won because I know what a phenomenal tennis player you are. Let me just put that on the record here.
Used to be okay, not anymore.
To all of you, I'd love to know if there is a motto that really keeps you grounded that you would like to share. Verdenia, let's start with you.
You are your brother's keeper. You are your brother's keeper. Brother means sister, everyone. We're all responsible for each other, and that is the only way we're going to continue to thrive in America, in our community, is that we're responsible. We need to make sure that our children learn, that we create an atmosphere in which they can continue to move forward, and that their parents, we all want the same thing, and that's to take care of our families, to have a comfortable life and to take care of our families. So yes, we are our brother's keeper.
Kelly, what about yours?
So I received this advice early on, and my motto is, the toes you step on today are connected to the butt you have to kiss tomorrow. Excuse my language. But basically, my mom always said, don't burn any bridges. And when I received that advice very early on, I don't think I really even knew what she was talking about. But it is a small world, and I can remember a funny story. When I was in high school, I dated a boy, and we broke up. I went away to college, and when I came back to apply for this job at the Business Development Board and walked into the boardroom and looked at the people who would be making the decision as to whether or not I could get this job out of a pool of 200 applicants, it was the father of the boy that I broke up with. And it just dawned on me, Mom, you're right. The toes you step on today are connected to the butt you have to kiss tomorrow, so don't burn any bridges. And be nice to everybody, and approach as you climb up that ladder of your career, approach it with humility. I mean, we are still sisters, we're aunts, we're mothers, we get up every morning, we take the trash out, we cook dinner at night. We are really normal people. And sometimes it breaks my heart to see people rise up the ladder and be so egotistical about the title that they have. And I've seen it all. People that have the same title as me that think that they need an entourage of security people around them as they enter a room. As you climb up that ladder, and I speak to young girls, keep your humility. You don't need to act like a man or look like a man to be a female executive. Remember your roots and where you came from. And remember to always help other people. And I think that, those simple pieces of advice have been what I've lived on, and has certainly led to a very fruitful and rewarding opportunity that I've had over the last 3 decades.
And Evelyn, you have a long history in philanthropy. You even took a year's leave from the law to devote yourself to philanthropy. So why is this important to you, and is that really a part of your motto?
I don't know that I have a motto per se. My friends always hear me say is keep drama out. Always keep drama out. And, find what you love and follow that, and I spend a lot of time with my mentees, and, I have to break through the first answer of why are you going into law? Because I want to help people. Why do you want to help people? Hone in on what makes you tick, what you love, and you can build not just a career, but a life from that. To me, philanthropy, whether it's working for, Rosarian or Cardinal Newman, or usually is related to education and kids. But I just feel like it's an obligation. Like, you have to pay it forward. I feel that I've been so blessed in my life with the opportunity to obtain an education, the opportunity to serve. I've been blessed with 23 years of an amazing marriage and a gorgeous soul of a child, and my parents are still alive, and I have so much to be grateful for, and I feel that I'm so blessed that there is no option but to pay it forward, whether it's helping out an organization or a school or kids or whomever. I don't think I have ever turned anyone away who has picked up the phone. If there is something I can do, or I know someone that can possibly do it, I do not shy away from making a phone call and just introduce myself, because I can potentially help someone else. So that's how I just kind of live my life. No drama, and do what you love.
And Pamela, what about you? A motto that you live by?
Well, first of all three of these ladies who just spoke, they do live by their mottos, I will say. I admire them all for that. You know, I remember my dad saying to me something once that has stuck with me my whole life. He said to me early in my career, you know, Pam, your biggest risk is not failure. It's success. He said, you know, when you look around, not just Palm Beach County or Florida, but around the world, people who have so much and who have been given so much blow it. They want more. They think the grass is greener. They're dishonest. And he said, you know, people who are successful tend to not appreciate what they've been given. And that has always stuck with me, and I think it's kept me very grounded, that none of us are entitled to success. None of us are entitled to the good things that come our way. If we're lucky enough and we've worked hard enough to have them, we should have gratitude, and we should pay it forward, like Evelyn said, and we should be our brother and sister's keeper, and we should look ahead. So that is something that has always stuck with me, that, and I've tried to pass on to my own boys, that, you know, as success comes your way, be grateful and don't think that it's something that you're entitled to.
That reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, which is, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. It's greenest where you water it the most.
That's right.
And I always feel like that's a good reminder, and kind of to what you speak of right now. You know, before we start to wrap up, a couple more questions. For Kelly, we kind of touched on this, and we knew we were going to discuss it, but without naming names, because I do feel like this is a major issue that women face. Have you ever dealt with gender discrimination on your way up, and how did you handle it? What's your advice to young women today about how to handle gender discrimination?
So I did face gender discrimination very early on in my career, and I think that has led to the very thick skin that I've grown over the years. It's made me far tougher than I could have ever been. I can remember being 21 years old, walking into a boardroom with colleagues, men my own age, men much older, and when someone needed coffee, they thought that I was the coffee girl. I was either the coffee girl or I was the copy girl, one or the other. And yet there could be men there that weren't even in the same position as I was, but I happened to, I guess, look like the coffee girl. And then when I became president, there was just a very small period of time, and then I just had to nip it. But it was disheartening, and again, you have to have thick skin. But I can remember very early on when I accepted the position of CEO, after the organization had 20 years of a male CEO, I can remember walking down the stairs to meet with a male executive who was considering moving their business to Palm Beach County, and I would say, hi, hello, welcome to Palm Beach County, you know, can I help you? It may have been a walk-in, and the man would say, yes, I'm here to see Kelly Smallridge, and I would say, that would be me, and the look that they would give me, like, there's no possible way that you're the CEO of the Economic Development Board. I think that the advice that I have, and quickly, you know, the way that you present yourself and the way that you approach the discussion that comes after that really helps. And I said this earlier on in my comments. I realized I had to become the best at my job, and I had to become an expert at my job. And once I set out to go down that path, that nobody in the state of Florida in terms of economic development is necessarily going to know more than me or present their county better than me, then I think I gained a level of confidence where I noticed the gender discrimination went away pretty quickly. But I had to put my mind to it, and I could not let that knock me off my game. It's very easy to get knocked off your game if you let that get to you. But I think that anyone coming out of college, even in today's world, would be naive to think that gender discrimination does not exist. It still does. It has gotten so much better, but just be prepared.
And let's stick with that idea, Verdenia, as we start to close out our discussion, which I could honestly talk with you guys for another whole hour, but I would love to hear from you some mentoring advice for the young women who will be watching this. As a mentor of young women yourself, what do you think they need most to help them attain success in our business world today?
Confidence and humility. Confidence and humility. They must believe in themselves. But in order to believe in yourself, you need to prepare. You need to be hard at work on educating yourself in whatever area of life you're looking to move into. Build that confidence. Never stop learning. Learn everything you can learn. And it doesn't matter who you learn it from. It can be, a male, female, any race, any culture. And as a matter of fact, you need to make sure you're surrounding yourself with people that look and think differently from you, because that's how you grow as well. So I would say to them to learn all you can learn, be confident in who you are, love yourself, and to make sure that you are kind to others. I think we forget that sometimes. We forget that we need to be kind to each other, because we need to treat each other as we would have someone treat us. And so those are my words I tell my girls, as well as my young men, because my daughter, we had a house full of kids all the time. And so those kids now come back to see us. They bring their families back. They are now having babies. They're moving into Palm Beach County. Unfortunately, we lose a lot of them to other places because they can't afford to live here in Palm Beach County. So I cannot miss this opportunity to share that we as an organization, as a community, we need to ensure that we are building affordable workforce housing so that our children can come back here and live and take care of us as we season out. So yes, confidence and humility is key.
Perfectly said. Confidence and humility, and we all have to lift each other up. Verdenia, Kelly, Pamela, Evelyn, thank you all so much for your time and your candor this morning. You make us all proud to live and work in Palm Beach County. And as we celebrate Women's History Month, we are so very grateful for the foundation that you've laid for women for generations to come. Thank you all so much.
Thank you to Tiffany and to every one of our panelists for your words of inspiration. Once again, we are grateful to our many sponsors named below and to our host at the Bend. For information about the Historical Society of Palm Beach County, visit our new website at pbchistory.org. It has been a pleasure being with all of you today. Thank you.